Hi, in today's video I'm going to take a first look at the Fizik Tempo Argo R5 saddle, and I'll give you my first impressions of how the saddle is. Here's a look on the outside of the box, and there's some wording here. This one says it's designed to perform on paved roads, including demanding pave, and pave is cobblestones, and I don't really consider cobblestones as paved roads. The other side of the box has the same thing, but in different languages. I decided to get the 160mm S alloy black saddle. Now, unveiling this, you can see it comes with a nice cover. And then now we remove this one, and there's the saddle right here in this container. There's also a user manual right here. There's just a lot of text on this side and here's a pictogram. So I believe here it shows that ideally the clamps on your seat posts are 8mm, and you keep it and your clamp for the seat post should be within 30mm. Here's some information in the user manual. Feel free to pause it and read it if you'd like to. Here's some more information, possibly some safety information as well. For maintenance, they do ask that you periodically clean the saddle with a damp cloth and very neutral detergent. Looks like here's the limits. Don't go all the way out and clamp on the outer edges. And there's just some more specs here on the clamps. This Tempo is the Road series, as we can view right here. And this is the Argo shape. And it's the R5, which is more budget friendly. It weighs 247 grams per manufacturer, and I did get the 160mm width version. So the Tempo means that it's the Road series here, and the Argo is more for endurance riding. At first I couldn't decide between the Vento and the Argo because they do look very similar. However, this Vento series is more for an aero riding position and more aggressive. So this is for more race bikes leaned over and having a back more flat position rather than endurance where you're a little more upright. Also, this is supposed to be a little softer here. Let's go ahead and take this off. I believe it may just pop right out here, and take a close look at this Fizik saddle. From the user manual, I didn't think that there would be such a large area for clamping, but it looks like there's quite a bit of area here for your seat post clamp. And we'll go ahead and take a look at the shape here of the saddle. It's supposed to be a little shorter nose, and this is supposed to be a great cutout to relieve some pressure in sensitive areas. And this other side, it looks like there are no markings on this side. The bottom appears to be fairly sturdy. That's what I'm looking for. I am replacing another Fizik saddle that did break and didn't make it to the end of its life how long I thought it should be. So in terms of softness, so see how I'm pushing fairly hard on this. It doesn't look like it flexes that much. However, the Rodyne here, when I push down, you see how much further my finger goes in? It's quite a bit softer here already than this Argo R5. And this is the one it's replacing, and as you can tell, this one didn't last too long. If you take a look here, just sitting on it, probably lasted few thousand miles, just riding it quite a bit. And if you're going over a lot of bumpy roads and you're bouncing up and down, eventually it just flexed and cracked here. So when you put it down, you actually sit on it, it completely bends like this, so it's broken. So this was my go-to saddle, the Fizik Aliante Carbon with the carbon rails here. And look at my impressions here when I'm pushing down, and for the same effort, maybe not as much. So we'll see. maybe it just feels stiff now, then it's actually real soft when I ride it. So the profile here also on the seat's a little more flat, and I like to sit maybe a little more upright now than I did years ago, so that's why I'm switching saddles from more of a race-oriented, aggressive position to a more endurance and comfortable position on the road bike here. Next, let's compare it to the Sella Italia flight saddle here. The flight saddle also seems to be a little more rounded here. It's more narrow, probably around 135, 140 millimeters, whereas this is 160, a little more flat, has a nice cutout area. And again, you saw how hard it is for me to push down here, but with the flight saddle, seems to be a little more soft as well. This is definitely one of my older saddles, a Specialized body geometry, and it was my go-to saddle for comfort. And again, it's about similar to the other saddles in terms of how far my thumb depresses. Again, you can go ahead and compare visually the size of this Fizik versus a Specialized body geometry comp from years ago. So again, Fizik claims that this saddle at 160 millimeter is 247 grams. On the scale here is 259 grams. I went ahead and weighed it on my other scale at 259.6 grams here. The distance between the seat clamp area, where you could put the seat clamps, is approximately 60 millimeters. Max width of the cutout is about 34 millimeters wide. Taking a look at sit bone width between these 2 points right here. If your sit bone is 100 millimeters or 10 centimeters, this is where you would sit along the saddle here. At 110 millimeters or 11 centimeters, this is my approximate sit bone width. And my sit bones will be somewhere along this area of the seat. And finally, 115 millimeters. If you're sitting very far forward between these points, that's where your sit bones will be, coming down here on the more outer edge of the saddle. The width of the saddle and the widest position here does appear to be 160 millimeters or 16 centimeters wide. From end to end, this appears to be 260 millimeters or 26 centimeters long. The standard width for the seat rails is 42 millimeters from center to center between these two seat rails. And the clamp is 7.2 millimeters wide. The front part here is 40 millimeters wide, and this part here is about 87 millimeters wide. So I tried to measure the padding thickness without putting too tight, and it's about 18.5 millimeters, so not too thick of padding along the side here of this saddle. Here's what the saddle looks like installed onto my cyclocross bike. And it does look a little different. I also had to put the saddle as far forward as possible, so right on the very edge of the line right there, because the suspension seat post stud buster pushes it back just a little bit and looks a little different than some of the other saddles. So first impression sitting on this is that it is a little more uncomfortable than some of the other seats that I sit on. I think it's just going to take some time to kind of get used to this, but I have to go outside with some cycling padded shorts and try this out. So the seat is a little wider than Fizik recommends. I normally ride with a 140 millimeter width saddle for more aggressive type riding. So this 160, my sit bones were able to fit on the seat quite well at 11 centimeter sit bone width. So I'm out on a ride now and riding the new Fizik seat. It feels pretty good. Initially when I sat on it, it was pretty hard, but then after I've been riding for about an hour now, and it feels pretty good. It may be hard to see, but when I pedal, my legs clear the seat pretty well. So with the sit bones of, again, 11 centimeters, this 160 millimeter seat fits pretty well for me, but your mileage may vary. It might fit for you depending on, I guess, your body measurements. So regarding the padding of the Fizik seat, yes, it does feel really firm, but I do have the thud buster suspension seat post and also padded shorts. So I guess with those two, it's a lot more bearable and manageable. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll show you the view a little bit. Thanks for watching very much, and let me know in the comment section if you have any questions about this Fizik saddle. Thanks so much for watching, and have a great day.